Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the From Fragmented Data to AI Ready Operations webinar. My name is Selva Pandian. I am the Managing Director and Head of the Cloud Practice here at Level Shift. The last couple of years, every time I meet customers, the conversation always revolves around AI. So they talk about agentic workflows, autonomous enterprise, intelligent decision making. There is always AI about the discussion. And these customers at various levels of AI maturity, and they are on various stages of implementing AI. But what common challenge I hear is always data. So AI is only as great as the data behind it. And our today's webinar is just addressing that. We are talking about that. I have two great guests, Charles Betts, who is the Vice President and Principal Analyst from Forrester, where he leads research focused on enterprise architecture, IT operating models, digital transformation, and emergence of AI in the modern enterprise, right? The impact of AI on modern enterprise. Charles helps leaders understand how enterprise architecture, IT operating models, and governance has to evolve in the age of AI. Next, I have Ananda Paramasivam. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Cornell Lab. He brings the practitionering perspective to this discussion. He's in front lines of digital transformation and innovation. He leads modern technology platforms to increased constituent engagement, operational efficiencies, and constituent outcomes. Welcome you both. Charlie, if you wanted to add something, go ahead. And then Ananda, maybe you can do another extra introduction and we get started.
Thank you very much, Silva. It's an honor to be here and super excited about the conversation today. I'll just add that my wife and I love birds. We have a bit of a sanctuary in the backyard with a little bit of a water feature, and we were so excited that the hummingbirds started to really hang out and be our guests this year. This is the first year we've had hummingbirds. We have all the usual other birds, but robins and chickadees and cardinals and such. But so I'm just very happy to be here to talk about this and then kind of bring both the natural world and the technology world together a little bit here.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm just so excited to be, first of all, to be part of this webinar here, and thank you for Selva and Charlie to host this one. It's always right. It's always exciting to talk about birds, it's nature and the conservation, and how the technology can enable all of this, right? Coming together, part of it. So I'm just so excited to be part of here, and let's take it from here.
Great, Ananda, and it is so nice to meet you. So let's start with talking a little bit about the core mission of the lab and how it benefits the public, how it benefits the birds that we hopefully love and appreciate, and where you fit in.
So, Charlie, thanks for that question. At the core, as you already probably know, right? At the core in our lab, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, I'm talking about, our mission is really about using birds as a gateway. That's how we look at it, to understand and protect the natural world, right? If you really look at our mission statement, and that's what it comes down to, right? How do we look at the birds as a gateway to understand the entire nature around us? And how do we use that part of it to protect the nature of the world? And at lab, right? And we really combine our science, public engagement, and education and conservation, all things together. On one hand, if you really look at it, we have the top-notch researchers sitting and studying birds, biodiversity. You're talking about migration patterns and behavior, part of it, and many other things, including environmental changes. On the other hand, if you really look at it, again, we invite public into that work through our platforms like eBoard and Merlin and Boards of the World and many other participatory science programs. So that's kind of what makes the lab so special. We are not just producing science inside some university setting here. We are really helping millions and millions of people around the world, if you really wanted to look at that way, and help them to learn about boards and how they can come together and contribute towards observations that we are trying to do within the lab and towards the science and the insights and become part of much larger conservation effort. That's really what it is. Lab is all about. So if you really look at from the board standpoint, it gives a lot of data or better science, and the better the data and the better the science, we obviously can make the better conservation decisions, right? And awareness, which will all help to preserve and protect the nature part of it. And for the people, if you really look at from the people side of the world, then they have obviously have knowledge, they have fun while doing learning and obviously participating and many other things they do. And then they connect to the nature. That's the most important part that we bring the people towards. And in practical way, they can contribute towards conserving the nature part. So that's kind of how I see the core of our lab mission is, right? And if you really wanted to look at the technology side, or that's me, my role as the chief technology officer at the lab, my role really fits into the juncture of this, right? The technology and the innovation side of it, right? It makes sure how the lab's mission can scale. That means building digital data and AI and enterprise capabilities that will allow our science, public engagement, education, and conservation work, all of that to come together and operate as a connected ecosystem. That's really where my role comes in. So the technology, as obviously you can see here, is not a mission by itself, but it is an enabler to our mission.
Yeah,
Hopefully
very
that
good.
answers.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify for our audience, of course, there's an app for that, right? Unless I'm mistaken. So that's in fact how this actually comes to life. That's my understanding, right?
There are
Yeah,
multiple apps,
just
Charlie.
Ah, right. Okay, very
not
good.
just one app. We have like several of the participatory scientific platforms and products, applications, whatever way you want to call it. Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, you yourself have had quite a run. Oracle and then a decade running enterprise IT at Johnson and Johnson. And now the birds. What pulled you into your latest endeavors here? And how is it going compared to what you expected as you first came in?
That's an interesting question. And an interesting journey, product company like Oracle and completely a consumer company and medical devices company and healthcare company of Johnson Johnson and many other companies in between and all the way to the nature world here with boards, right? It's quite a journey by itself. But I think many of us will come to this part during our journey of life. At some point in your life, you will suddenly will stop and think and see, what am I doing, right? Am I really happy about whatever I've been doing? So in my case, what happened over 30 years, I've been in the corporate world, really running supply chain, data center, operations, globally, all of that. And one fine day, suddenly I realized that's not making me happy as much as I want to be. And then I was looking for how meaningfully I can contribute and just not to the world I'm contributing, but also how much meaningful it is to myself. And that's when I think lab came as one of the options. And when I looked at the lab, what really pulled me is the combination of the mission and scale, right? Um, when you look at the lab at first glance, it could look like it's just about boards, nothing else, right? That's how it will look. But if you come closer and if you start looking deeper and deeper, then suddenly you will realize it's not just about boards. It's about global science, global data. Then you're talking about global education and global public engagement as all comes together as one organization. That's what we are doing in the lab. So the lab reaches millions of people, right, around the world through our platform. Exactly what you just asked. So eBoard, Merlin, you're talking about Boards of the World and Board Academy, many other. It brings together researchers, you talk about conservation partners, you're talking about educators, you're talking about technologists, and the public, right? So the, so the way, in a way, if you look at it, I have not moved too far off from what I was doing as a global technologist, and coming here, it's more of it's it is an opportunity for me to apply all of that knowledge here, all of that enterprise technology, and the experience that I have, and something more deeply and meaning, right, with meaning, right here. So that's kind of what the lab's role is for me. But just a couple of things, right? It's not just everything is what I was thinking and walked into this role. Part of that is the complexity of the lab that I did not expect when I walked in, right? I expected obviously the mission-driven organization, right? Obviously, we know that with a lot of passionate people about the mission. I definitely, see that happening within the lab. But I also found a very sophisticated digital ecosystem. That's not what I expected, right? We have global platforms like the way I talked about, eBoard or Merlin or any other things that we have. Then we have a massive biodiversity data sets. We are one of the largest in the entire world. And then that brings an AI opportunities and the challenges with the cloud and cybersecurity needs. You're talking about CRM modernization. There is a real need across all of that to how do we bring all of this together and make it work. So if you ask me, what I expected and what's happening is the mission is really is somewhat what I expected. It's in fact even more inspiring, and the technology part of it is more challenging and even more bigger than what I was actually thinking when I was walked in. Uh, so that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. Very, very interesting. The scale sounds like it's quite impressive. And of course, it's because you have this world-class science on the one side and this enormous community of members, donors, and citizen scientists. I love the concept of a citizen scientist. Do these all live in fairly separate worlds technically, or does it all come together somewhere?
It's it's an interesting question again. The short answer, I will probably have to explain that a little bit. Definitely they meet. It's not, and though they are in separate world, they definitely meet. But historically, they have not always met or not as fully connected like the way we all like to see it, right? As you all know, the lab has an incredible level of science, and it also has extraordinary global community of boarders, right? Members or donors or learners, participatory scientists, whatever way you want to call it. And if you look at these two communities, technically many of these communities have grown through different platforms and different systems over the time. Again, eBoard, Merlin, whatever, right? Board Academy, any of that. And then where they meet, between this researchers and the participatory or the public part of it, Where they really meet is the participation and the data part of it. That's where they come together. That's the juncture, right? The researchers use the data. For example, let me try to explain this. For example, when someone submits an observation through eBoard, and that that person, the public, might think it's as a personal boarding record, but it becomes part of the global scientific data set that can support research, conservation, migration analysis, decision making frameworks. That's kind of the best example I can give how a public engagement and a world class science kind of meet directly, right? That's where it meets. So it's not exactly you would think how they meet, they work together. It's not. The data somehow is the core for the scientists to do all their work, and that comes from the public in many cases. And then that's one side of the lab. And then if you look at, there is another side here, which is enterprise technology perspective. There is still a lot of work needs to be done on that front. That's where level shift comes, right? And my focus is really helping the lab move from separate systems to more connected ecosystems, right? Where science data and engagement data and learning data, and if you think from a donor relationships and that kind of data, and our partners globally, that we have over thousands of partners in the conservation side, their activity and all of that can be better understood and connect responsibly. How do we get that done, right? That does not mean we collapse everything and bring everything into one big giant system. That's not what I'm talking about, right?
No.
It means we are really trying to talk about how do we build the right level of shared capabilities across identity, across data governance, across cloud architecture. You're talking about analytics, privacy, AI, security, all of it. So they are the foundations that will help the different parts comes together at lab.
Yep. Sounds like an architecture question. So
Yes.
I want to actually take this moment, since you mentioned level shift, I want to actually bring in Selva here. Um, that leads well into something I wanted to ask you. So given everything we're hearing, the world-class science, huge community of members and donors now, citizen scientists, how does personalization work in the marketing cloud? How does it help Cornell Labs,
Yeah.
actually bring all this together?
Yeah, that's a great question, Charlie. Actually, what we try to do here is right the bridge the gap between scientific curiosity, which, like as Ananda mentioned, all the participation is happening, and how do we take meaningful actions using that curiosity, right? So like Ananda mentioned, like we get signals. Cornell Lab gets signals from their website, their email engagement, eBird submissions, Bird Academy learning, Merlin usage, Birds of the World subscriptions, membership. So these are various signals. These are not just data. They tell Cornell Lab why someone cares. Are they learning? Is it research? Is it citizen science? Is it observing, right? Whatever they care. So what we try to do is we are trying to bring all of this data together, unify, make a constituent 360, which powers Salesforce Marketing Cloud personalization, which helps Cornell makes its science not just institutional, but more personal. And not by sending more messages, but making every interaction relevant to the constituents' passion, right? I think that's the what we are trying to do here is help Cornell achieve that and make sure that they are aligned with those constituents' passion and be able to do that. So that's how we are trying to do all of that stuff is to bring those data together. It's a great project. Like as Ananda said, I'm able to relate to a lot of the complexities he's talking about. So we are going through that, and we are actually getting to the finish line. So very excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. You're getting there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all of those citizen scientists, in some ways, you have to be attentive to their experience and their actual, what they're encountering as they participate. So I think it's a very important set of concerns here. Now, in some previous conversations we had as we were getting to know each other, I think we mentioned that it was mentioned that there were 12 first-class systems comprising the lab's IT landscape, and that's a real landscape. If you gave me the walking tour, what are the big systems, and which grew up in-house versus which are commercial off the shelf?
Charlie, I would be a little bit careful from what I'm going to say here, uh, because I wouldn't want to put an exact number like 12 or any other number there, because
Hmm.
it really depends on how do we look at our systems, right?
Yeah.
Versus is it a systems versus products versus platforms, right?
Yep.
But I understand the spirit of the question here. It's absolutely
Mhm.
right. It's a real landscape that I'm dealing with. Uh, so if I have to give you a walking tour the way you asked, I would probably you know group it all of that we have into 3 or 4 different groups. And the very first group, I would probably call it as engagement platforms or public engagement platforms, right? That's where the public science and engagement comes together. You're calling, eBoard or Merlin or Macaulay Library, or you're talking about boards of the world, and then all about boards, Board Academy, board camps, NestWatch, FeederWatch, and there are so many other things that we have, and I'm probably missing a few others here. So another participatory, right? So there's quite a lot of experience platforms are built within the lab, and they are all grew up very organically inside the lab, like we said it, because these are all the things are very close to our heart and soul of our organization, right? Very close to our science and the content and the community and the conservation mission that we have. So they're not generic products. They are really, you can't just buy off the shelf. That's built within, right? And the second group of things is where, the level shift comes here, right? The enterprise and relationship systems and things of that, where we use those systems to manage donors, members, communication, learning, and some commerce activities, finance, HR, and operations, right? All of that. So that's all like a commercially off-the-shelf products that we have, which are either, you can think of a commercial product or a university kind of a set of platforms that we have. So that's another bucket. And then the third one, which is another layer on top of all of this, which is really the data layer, right? The data, cloud, AI, and then the research infrastructure underneath all of whatever we just talked about. That includes scientific data pipelines. You're talking about media archives. You're talking
Hmm.
about APIs across all of these systems. You're talking about analytics. You're talking about cloud environment. You're talking about storage, security, identity, right? The entire infrastructure. That support both the global public platforms and also the internal research, right? So our landscape is really a serious mix of all of this, right? Some of some of them are more mission specific and lab built, and some of them are obviously off the shelf enterprise capabilities that we brought in to get things done. My real job, again, coming back to that, is to make sure how we bring all of this together and talk to each other and get the lab operate like one connected ecosystem. That's where my thing comes.
Hmm. Got it. I certainly sympathize and take your point on it's very difficult to count systems. Actually, this is one of my areas of research, and that I frequently find myself in client conversations. How do we even count? Or do we need to? So it's a point very well taken. And in the interest of not trying to count, I mean, you have some number of petabytes, I have heard, also of the data, and it's another number that is really quite large, even for commercial enterprises. So, what are some of the data specific challenges that you find yourself running into for our friends in the data management community out there?
It's interesting that you heard some numbers around it. So I'm just curious what number you heard about it.
I heard 8 petabytes. I think we might have even in previous
Okay.
conversations. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Again, right. So the numbers, right? It's always changing,
right.
especially with the way how we operate. Um, the way I would count again with the numbers is like, are we 8 petabytes or 9 petabytes? I can basically say we have more than that, right? It's very
Wow.
real. The scale is very real.
Hmm.
Let's just call it as multi-petabyte data environment, right? That's the scale we are operating in. But again, right, I would not call all of that as a production, right? So obviously we
Right.
have resource storage, we have media archives, backups, derivatives, analytics, data products, many other things, comprises of all of that into that. But instead of looking at the data from multi-petabyte environment standpoint, I would probably look at it again. Maybe I will layer it differently. We have, I think, about three, maybe four different layers of data here. That's what we deal with. Unstructured data, that's one bucket I will probably put it. Then there is obviously a structured data and then obviously derived data and then enterprise data, right? So when you talk about unstructured, the biggest and most visible category that's our media, right? So when I'm talking about media, I'm talking about photos, audio recordings, and videos of boats and other wildlife. Especially if you look at that's all part of our Macaulay Library and Yang Center. That's where it comes down to. That's a real rich unstructured data, incredibly valuable for our science and research part of it because it captures species, it captures behavior patterns, it captures the location, geography part of it, the seasonality part of it, the sound in ways that text cannot capture, right? All of that comes into what? That's one, right? And then when we come down to the structured data, again, within our public engagement platforms like eBoard, right, where checklists are there, species observations are there. We are talking about location again, date and time, effort, all other kinds of metadata we are talking about here. So that is very structured. But there is a different challenge here, right? When you take it from public, the different skill level now we are dealing with the people. Now, then you are talking about different uneven geographic coverage. Then you're talking about very different seasonal patterns across the globe. You're talking, right? And there are changing patterns of their participation over the time. That is another thing, and the quality of the data that we are talking about. All of that you deal with, right? So with the unstructured data, we deal with different kind of a problem, and then with the structured data, we have a different kind of problem. Then we are talking about the derived data, which is basically our um, science derived science data, which is models that we build, maps, trends, or species distributions, uh, uh, or abundance estimates, right? Or even conservation products that we build for other organizations, analytics data sets. All of that is another raw how do you take the raw observations from the entire public engagement that we have across millions of people, and how do you convert that into a scientific insight, right? That's a derived data part we have that we deal with. And then we also have the enterprise data that we talked about, right? Where level shift is helping us basically against our members, donors, again, our digital users, our communication part of it, all of that, and our finance systems. That's kind of a different kind of data again, but it matters. It matters because the lab's mission depends on both science and as well as public engagement. It's not one way or other, right? So the challenge is really normally what I don't know. I think anybody would expect that in a place like where science, a hardcore science, and a public participation, and very high-end digital platforms, all three in one place. So you would expect a very similar challenge, all right, here too. So it's not any different from that. Of course, we have to manage the storage growth. Obviously, right? We get petabytes of data every couple months, and then the meta quality that we just talked about. There are taxonomy changes happens in the species world all the time. You're talking about geospatial indexing. You're talking about data lineage. You're talking about permissions. You're talking about privacy. You're talking about security, cost, long-term preservation, all of that, right? Clubbed into one and given it. That's what the lab is all about.
It's fascinating. I mean, when you think about the combination of a serious research agenda coupled with such a broad public face, I mean, I don't, I'm certainly not a specialist in these questions, but I struggle to think of other examples. You've got so much diversity in what you're having to deal with and manage here. It's very, very impressive.
Yeah,
Could
the way
The
you
growth,
go ahead?
the,
Go ahead.
the way I mean, since we are talking about petabytes, I don't know how much of our users can actually kind of relate to it. I can I can give probably in a very different way what we have as a audio recording just from Yang Center alone. That's over that's over 1,000 years of sound recordings just in Yang Center alone. Just to give an idea of what that is, right? 1,000 years of sound recording. If you start today, you come back 1,000 years later, it will be still running.
A
and that's
thousand
what
years
kind
of
of
bird
powers.
song. It's almost
Yep.
poetic.
And that's what powers it to even recognize a bird within few seconds of its recording, right? So
Yeah, now how do you take all of that and make it trustworthy, make it discoverable, make it,
mm,
come out with in a second, split second, figure out, take 1,000 years of sounding and
mm.
come like that, right?
Yeah.
That's the science behind it.
Yeah, that's truly impressive. I'd like to turn again to Selva and let you and him, maybe you both can talk a little bit more generally about the data partnership. We've talked specifically about some questions, but maybe even talk about how the collaboration came about.
So, uh, like, I think our interaction started with, as Ananda like mentioned, right, for the enterprise data. So basically the marketing cloud. So they were embarking on a journey of creating personalized engagement for the constituents. And there was actually an RFP. So that was the process in which our engagement actually started. So we responded to that RFP process, and we got selected. That was, I know, like Ananda can add some more to it, but it was definitely, it's a very interesting experience. As Ananda mentioned, we were also kind of was surprised to see the complexity behind all of this, right? So we are trying to, in the first phase, we are trying to bring in 5 business units, unify all of them, and trying to build that personalized journey for the constituents. And it's such an exciting journey. We are looking at going live in August, and then moving on to the other business units within the lab. And in parallel, we are also doing a data discovery engagement. And like that's when Ananda mentioned, right? You just cannot count the number of systems. So as we go through this discovery process of bringing all this data together, right? Both the scientific data, the derived data, the unstructured, structured, all of this together, create a data foundation and help all the constituents have access to this data very easily is the purpose of this project. So when we went through those discovery exercise, we kind of saw a lot more complexity than what we saw with our marketing cloud personalization project. So it's definitely a very exciting project, and very happy to have been part of this. And thanks to Ananda for that opportunity and believing in us. Ananda, you
So
wanted to, yeah.
yeah, if I could add few things to it, let me first make sure I clarify this part of it.
Mhm,
Because many a times it happens, right? Technology for the sake of technology, or the problem was never there, and then it was created, and then the opportunity gets kind of created from that, and then you kind of figure out a solution for the problem that you created. That's not the case here. It's really a very real strategic need that we had within the lab. If you look at the lab, right, again, as I've probably said many a times, right, we have millions of people engaging with us on a different ways, right? The boarders, app users, we are talking about members, donors, all kinds, scientists, conservation partners. So our relationship with all of these people is kind of one-off in many and across our siloed systems that we had. Um, that's that's really where it came down to when we looked at our mission, and then the question came up was, how do we better understand and serve the people across the full relationship, not just one-off kind of a relationship. Uh, that is the starting point of our project Flyway. That's how the RFP kind of put in place, and then obviously the level shift was one of the 6 partners came in, and then we really liked level shift in obviously from their capabilities and many other things that they could showcase during that process. It's not an easy process, I can tell, and thanks to every partner, not just level shift, who went through that part to make sure they're giving their best. But let's come back to the level shift here, right? So Charlie, you mentioned it's a data partner. So I would probably reword that a little bit, right? It's not a, I don't know whether I would call it as a data partner. I would probably call them as we're not giving a data to level shift and say, okay, go figure out and get some money out of it. No, we are not trying to do it. We're really trying to transform the way we look at how we can build the foundation for a more complete constituent view, right? So I would call them as a transformation partner or an implementation and transformation partner. So and also it's not and what they are doing for us is connecting all of our data sources across, again, donors, engagements, commerce, participatory science systems, all of it. And then they are right about that. Once we have the data sources connected, then they come and try to build the foundation for a more 360 view of our constituent. Then from there we build and to the next level, which is more personalized and coordinated and meaningful engagement across all channels. And the fourth one, which is also important, is it's not just build all of that and just keep sending more data or more messages to our constituent. It's not the case. It's more of do it in the way that respects, right, the privacy and the governance, security, and the mission, really the mission of the lab. That's kind of what Level Shift is trying to do for us. So we really appreciate about the collaboration. A part of it, and definitely we are moving in the right direction and getting things going. So.
Got it. Transformation partner, not data partner. I'm sure that Level Shift is quite happy with that as well. Noted.
Yeah, very happy about that, Charlie. Yeah,
got it. Okay, This has been a marvelous conversation. I mean, this they pay me to do this, you know. It's marvelous to have this kind of a conversation as part of what I do. So if you fast forward a couple years, what would good look like to you for the platform or the platform of platforms that you have? What is the thing that you'd like to most have solved? And sorry if this is a bit of a curveball at the end. What about AI? Where does that fit in for you?
So what good looks like in few years down the line, right? I don't know. I think the way I would think good is not uh, is not okay. We implemented the system. Let's have a that's not. I would call it as good. I think the good would probably is more like the way I said it, right? Much more connected understanding of the people who engage with us. If the lab has it at the end of it, right, then it'll be great, right? Today, again, right? Today, if you look at it, someone might use Merlin, then contribute to eBoard. Then they will take a board academy course. Then they might read boards of the world, attend an event, maybe become a member, and also maybe support the lab, right? Philanthropically. That could look like a very separate interactions technically in our systems today, right? But from that person's point of view, it is one relationship with the lab, right? It's not separate. So what I would love to solve is that connected relationship part. So good would mean we have a clear sight on that part of it, more complete constituent view, right? And also good should mean it's not just for the lab, what I feel, right? It should also, it's for the public. For the public, they should feel they have the best experience with the lab when they interact with us. We should be able to help someone learn more about the nature, conservation, boards, contribute more to the nature again, because that's why they are trying to engage with us, right? Maybe help them to discover what is next, what they can do in their own, so that at the end of all of that, that they feel really connected to the boards, or a lot more connected than what they are today, to the boards and obviously to the nature. That's kind of what I think is good looks like, right? So the look, I would not just say, okay, let's implement the system and call it as a day. No, it's not, right?
Hmm.
And then you asked about AI. Um, you know, it's interesting. Again, kind of a question there, because you may know it or you may not. The lab already has a very serious level of AI and machine learning capability, right? But again, this is very important here to segregate this part of it, because it has its on the mission areas like Merlin, right? Merlin helps people identify boards. That happens through the models, the machine learning models across the sound that we talked about 1,000 years of sound. How do we take that and make it in a clip second, right? And an image. E-board or status trends turn large-scale observations into some kind of a scientific product that can be used by governments or any kind of conservation partners, right? That is already happening. But for this platform that we are talking about here, Salesforce Marketing Cloud platform, the AI opportunity is very different. It's about helping the lab become more responsive and more intelligent in how we engage with people, right? So there is a clear black and white here. Is lab has AI already? Yes, we are extremely good at that, but on the mission platforms, but not on the engagement platforms with the the donor side of the world. So the key point I would probably put it here is AI is, again, right? We want to create the foundation, right, before we come down to the AI, even in the engagement side. That's what we did it in the mission side. So the real thing is AI is only useful if the foundation is really a good one, which is trusted. You know, we can go after it, and it is designed for AI purposes and fully governed and secure and all of that. Hopefully that answers. So the sequence is very important here. It's not just, okay, let's do for the sake of AI. No, we need to be able to connect the data, govern it responsibility. So you're talking about building the trust, and obviously you wanted to use AI wherever it can improve the mission. So
If I may just add there, Charlie and Ananda, right? I think as Ananda mentioned, right? So as part of this engagement, what we are also trying to do, like as Ananda mentioned, we are trying to understand where the constant relationship currently stands, right? So are they in observing? Are they learning? Are they participating? So we are trying to understand where they are and take them to the next logical step. And that's exactly what we are trying to do through this bringing all this unified data to understand where they are in their relationship with Cornell Lab and making sure that we are able to leverage AI as well to make sure that what the next logical step purely from taking them from being a learner to a participator, from advocacy to a lifelong loyal constituent for the lab. So
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like in that you're being an excellent transformation partner. And again, I would note that you are in the Forrester research on the Salesforce consulting services. So that you're now appearing in that landscape as well. So
yeah, that was a great recognition to be listed alongside of market leaders like Accenture, Deloitte. So it kind of shows years of we have been in the practice for 15 plus years. So demonstrates our expertise over the years. And I think that we were also kind of highlighted specifically on the agent force and data cloud. So it kind of shows our progress in making those investments within that space. So thanks to all our team members, customers, and partners who have enabled us to be highlighted. And thanks to Forrester to do that as well. So recognizing us.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, it seems like we may be back over to you to say some final words, Selva.
Yeah, again, I think it was thanks to you, Charlie and Ananda. Ananda, great insights. I think there was a lot of information you had shared, which I think you had already shared with me personally. I think the audience would have loved to understand what lab is doing, not only to the research, to the science, but also the citizens, how it's helping them to provide that collaboration and then engagement, not only on the research side, on the science side, but also on the public side as well. So, and Charlie, thanks a lot for just having this discussion fruitful. Appreciate all of it, and thanks everyone. Thanks audience. We'll meet again in the next webinar.
Thank you.
thank you, Selva. Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.